The European Union's decision to impose tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles is nothing short of a hypocritical move that reeks of double standards and thinly veiled protectionism, while the EU presents itself as a beacon of free trade and global cooperation. Its recent actions reveal a desperate attempt to shield its fragile auto industry from China's unstoppable rise. The hypocrisy is glaring. How can a bloc that constantly preaches the virtues of open markets turn around and slap punitive tariffs on products that outperform their European counterparts? This is not about fairness. It's about fear of losing technological and economic dominance to a nation that refuses to be bullied by Western powers. And let's not forget China's role in this escalating trade war, for all its complaints about the E.U's tariffs and the U.S's sanctions. China has been manipulating global markets for years, flooding them with state-subsidized goods while crying foul whenever someone fights back. Its retaliatory sanctions against the U.S. are just as calculated, targeting industries that Beijing knows are vital to Washington's economy. This isn't a trade dispute, it's a full-blown geopolitical chess match, with each side making moves that threaten to fracture the global economy. The sheer audacity of both the EU and China in their blame games is laughable, and the US is not an innocent bystander in this mess either. The sanctions between these global powers are less about justice or fair competition, and more about securing economic dominance at any cost. Each of them is guilty of undermining global trade, while pretending to stand for a greater good. Buckle up. Because this is just the beginning of a global showdown that will reshape the future of trade and international relations. Stay with us till the end, you won't want to miss how this saga unfolds. Hello and welcome back to Innovative Check YouTube channel, where we delve into the innovative and transformative projects changing our world. If you're new to the channel and enjoy learning about innovation stories around the world, you've come to the right place. Please subscribe, like, and comment to help boost our videos on YouTube. The tension between the EU and China over the imposition of tariffs on electric vehicles (EVs) is a clear indication of the increasing complexities in international trade, in a world where economic interests often clash with geopolitical ambitions. The move to impose tariffs on Chinese EVs reflects both a protective stance by the EU and a strategic countermeasure against China's rising dominance in global markets. The involvement of key countries such as France, Greece, Italy, and Poland in this decision showcases the balancing act that these nations are performing as they try to protect their own industries while navigating the sensitive terrain of international relations. The EU, with its deep-rooted principles of free trade and open markets, finds itself in a paradox. On one hand, there is a need to uphold the values that have long governed European trade policies. On the other hand, the competitive pressure from China, particularly in the EV sector, is forcing the bloc to reconsider its stance. The imposition of tariffs, ranging from 7.8% for Tesla to over 35% for Chinese companies like SAIC, is a direct attempt to curb the influx of cheaper vehicles into the European market. But this is more than just an economic decision, it is a political statement. By imposing tariffs, the EU signals its intention to slow China's growth in key technological sectors, while also protecting European jobs. China, for its part, has responded with a mixture of defiance and strategic patience. Sanctions from Western countries, particularly those coming from the US and now the EU, are seen as efforts to contain its technological rise. China's focus on producing EVs, backed by substantial government subsidies, has made it a leader in this industry. With companies like SAIC and NIO gaining global prominence, the country is positioning itself as the primary supplier of affordable electric cars, which challenges the traditional European auto industry. The tariffs, therefore, can be viewed as a direct attack on China's ambitions to dominate the EV market. The criticism, however, does not solely lie with China. The E.U's approach to resolving this trade conflict has drawn its fair share of skepticism, while protecting domestic industries is a legitimate concern. The use of tariffs as a tool of economic defense may not yield the intended results in the long term. Tariffs could lead to retaliatory measures from China, further straining relations between the two major global powers. In fact, some experts argue that the E.U's imposition of tariffs is not solely about EVs, but rather part of a broader strategy to align more closely with the US in its stance against China. The United States, under the Biden administration, has continued to implement policies that curb China's access to critical technologies, such as semiconductors and AI, in an effort to maintain its technological edge. The ongoing sanctions between the US and China have reverberated across industries, particularly in the high-tech sector. Companies like TSMC and ASML, both crucial to the production of semiconductors, have found themselves caught in the crossfire. The US, recognizing the importance of controlling the semiconductor supply chain, has placed restrictions on exports of key technologies to China, a move that has significantly impacted Chinese tech companies. China, in turn, has implemented its own set of sanctions, targeting U.S. companies that are critical to its economy, further escalating the trade conflict. Just a quick reminder to hit the like button below. YouTube has been restricting my videos a lot recently because of bots, so your like does help out this video massively in terms of the algorithm and YouTube. At the heart of this issue is a broader question about the role of protectionism in modern trade. Both the EU and China have, at various points, espoused the virtues of open markets, yet, in practice, both have employed protectionist measures when it suits their economic or political interests. The EU, with its long-standing commitment to free trade, finds itself in the awkward position of having to justify tariffs that run counter to its own principles. China, on the other hand, while advocating for global cooperation, continues to heavily subsidize its industries, giving its companies an unfair advantage in the global market. This duality, where both the EU and China act as both champions of free trade and protectors of their own industries, has created a complex web of policies that are difficult to untangle. The criticism aimed at both the EU and China is rooted in the inconsistency of their actions. For the EU, the imposition of tariffs on Chinese EVs is seen as a necessary evil to protect its auto industry, but it raises questions about the bloc's commitment to free trade. Critics argue that instead of imposing tariffs, the EU should focus on fostering innovation within its own industries, providing incentives for European companies to compete on a level playing field with their Chinese counterparts. This would not only protect jobs in Europe but also strengthen the bloc's long-term competitiveness in the global market. China, too, faces its own set of criticisms. Its aggressive push to dominate the EV market through government subsidies has distorted global trade, while it is within China's rights to support its domestic industries. The sheer scale of its subsidies has led to concerns about market manipulation. By flooding global markets with cheaper EVs, China is undermining the natural competition that would otherwise exist, making it difficult for companies in other countries to compete fairly. Furthermore, China's retaliatory sanctions against the US have been seen as heavy-handed, particularly in sectors where collaboration between the two countries could benefit both economies. In this context, the ongoing trade tensions between the EU, China, and the US seem unlikely to dissipate anytime soon. The global economy is becoming increasingly interconnected, and yet, paradoxically, protectionist measures are on the rise. The imposition of tariffs and sanctions may provide short-term relief to domestic industries, but in the long term, they could lead to a fragmentation of global trade networks, making it harder for companies to operate across borders. For both the EU and China, the challenge lies in finding a balance between protecting their domestic industries and maintaining their commitments to open markets. In addition to the economic implications, there are broader geopolitical consequences to consider. The imposition of tariffs on Chinese EVs by the EU is likely to further strain relations between Europe and China, at a time when global cooperation is needed more than ever. Issues such as climate change, global health, and security require collaborative efforts, and yet the ongoing trade conflicts are making it more difficult for countries to work together on these critical issues. The EU's decision to impose tariffs on Chinese EVs, while understandable from an economic perspective, may have unintended consequences in terms of its relationship with China, potentially leading to further divisions on the global stage. If you are enjoying this video so far, please don't forget to subscribe, share the video, and comment. As this situation unfolds, it is important to remember that trade conflicts rarely result in clear winners. While the EU may succeed in protecting its domestic auto industry in the short term, the long-term effects of these tariffs are less certain. Similarly, China's retaliatory measures may hurt US companies in the immediate future, but they could also lead to a reduction in the flow of goods and services between the two largest economies in the world, which would have far-reaching consequences for global trade. The future of global trade will likely be shaped by how the EU, China, and the EU, China, and the US navigate these complex issues. If history is any guide, protectionist measures tend to have unintended consequences, often leading to further economic instability rather than the intended protection of domestic industries. It remains to be seen whether the EU's decision to impose tariffs on Chinese EVs will ultimately benefit its economy, or whether it will lead to further trade tensions and economic disruptions. The involvement of companies like Tesla, which is already facing a 7.8% tariff, further complicates the issue. Tesla, being a US-based company, finds itself caught between the trade policies of three global powers, the US, China, and the EU. While Tesla has made significant investments in both China and Europe, the imposition of tariffs on its vehicles sold in the EU raises questions about the viability of its global supply chain. Other companies, particularly those that rely heavily on Chinese manufacturing, are facing similar challenges as they try to navigate the increasingly protectionist policies of major global markets. The imposition of tariffs on Chinese EVs by the EU, coupled with the ongoing sanctions between China and the US, highlights the complex interplay between economics and politics in today's globalized world. Both the EU and China are acting in their own self-interest, but in doing so, they risk further escalating tensions that could have long-term consequences for the global economy. The challenge moving forward will be finding ways to protect domestic industries without resorting to protectionism, and fostering international cooperation in an increasingly divided world. How the EU, China, and the US respond to these challenges will shape the future of global trade and international relations for years to come. Thank you for your attention, and I welcome your thoughts and questions on this complex and vital subject. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to get exclusive videos about how phenomenally China is developing and growing its influence. Your subscriptions and likes motivate us to generate more content, so please keep supporting us. Check out this video showing on your screen right now, and I will see you on the other side.